This lecture is a brief introduction to nutrition. I'm Dr. Ed Barre, full professor of human nutrition in the Department of Health Sciences here at the university. And should you wish to ask any questions or make any comment after the lecture, please email me at the address shown. Thank you. So the overview of the lecture is what is nutrition, nutrients defined, overview of nutrient handling in the body, consequences of good and bad nutrient handling in the body. So what is nutrition? It's really metabolism support. And a brief schematic of this is shown here. What we see in this slide is that the metabolism of carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, vitamins, minerals, and water all interact with one another in a way to produce a very coordinated response. And when this response is highly coordinated, then one should enjoy good health. So nutrition is directed at providing nutrients for metabolism. Metabolism results in tearing down of molecules for energy. That energy is used to build up other molecules and to provide heat for the body. And we run at about 37 degrees Celsius for good metabolism. Too much below that or too much above it is problematic in terms of the coordination between the various nutrients that I've just mentioned. Now, humans are constantly turning over nutrients in the body, and so they need a steady supply of fresh nutrients to ensure that metabolism is optimized for healthy growth maintenance, including brain and hence cognitive development, reduce disease risk, and an easier path to recovery from disease. The choices of the quantity and quality of nutrition do have a significant impact on one's length of life and also on the quality of one's life. So the quantity and quality of food and hence nutritional choices depend on personal preference. Some people prefer certain flavors, for example. Habits can be very comforting, so having the same thing for breakfast every day. Ethnic heritage and regional cuisines, what people grew up with, they will take on most likely into their adult lives. Social interactions, sometimes people will ignore the signals that they are full and continue to eat in with the idea that they're not going to offend the host. Then marketing. Companies push things on the basis of taste, texture, smell, price, so on and so forth. And of course, companies want to have people eat more so that their profits are better, market penetration is better if they're publicly traded, stock price is better, so on and so forth. And then there are positive and negative associations. So, for example, people may want to eat hot dogs when they're at a baseball game because they're enjoying the game and they associate that food with that particular enjoyment. Or they want to avoid certain foods that they may have been forced to eat. And then there are emotions. Here people eat comfort foods, which are high in sugar, and this helps to elevate the mood of the individual. Values, political views. Some individuals will eat either no animal product or some animal products, depends on how they have view animal rights. There are various dietary rules for various religions, and also there are environmental concerns. And some people, at least, will buy local because they don't want to be buying products that have been brought in long distance, which requires the use of fossil fuels and hence greenhouse gases and global warming. Body weight and health. Some people will eat to improve their body weight, or they will avoid certain foods. For example, if a food or foods have caused an allergic reaction. With regard to nutrition, people will choose to eat healthily and to avoid, for example, some ultra-processed foods which have been associated with a number of diseases. And then lastly, the availability, convenience, and the economy of food. This relates at least in part to food security. Certainly the food has to be available. It has to be convenient in the sense that you can only give people what they can eat. And if they don't have the appropriate preparatory tools, then for food beyond the point of the receipt of that food, then it has to be ready to eat. And then there has to be the affordability of food for people to be able to access it. So food insecurity is the lack of access to safe, nutritious, culturally acceptable food to support normal growth and development in a healthy life. Food security, of course, is access to all these things so that one supports normal growth and development and a healthy life. So what is nutrition? Well, the quality and the quantity of nutrition depends on food security, as we've just outlined. Now, food security allows the opportunity for 6 dietary principles, which I'll talk about in just a minute. And then the 6 dietary principles allow for ingestion, digestion, absorption, transport, metabolism, and elimination. And I will have that um, filled out a bit more in the next few slides. And then IDAPME allows one to get nutrients to where they're needed, when they're needed, in the form or forms needed, and in the quantity or quantities of those forms, so that this interaction between the nutrients that I talked about near the top of the talk today can be fulfilled. So the 6 dietary principles are A, B, C, D, M, V. A is adequacy, so sufficient energy and nutrients to meet the needs of healthy people. Balance, a couple of examples there, one from the animal world, one from the plant world. Meat is rich in iron but poor in calcium. Milk is rich in calcium but poor in iron. So by having somewhat of a balance of foods, a variety of foods, as it were, then one can get both iron and calcium. And the baked russet potato skin is rich in iron but poor in calcium, whereas calcium fortified orange juice is rich in calcium but poor in iron. So again, another example of balance. Energy control is essentially a bank account. So to keep a particular balance, whatever one takes out, of course, one has to put in. And here, instead of money here, we're talking about calories. So it's balancing calories in with calories expended by the energy demands of the body. Now, the energy demands of the body come in two forms. One is the basal metabolism, which is this sort of the very base metabolism that keeps us alive when we are resting. And then on top of that, we've got energy expenditure when we're physically active. So energy expenditure is a combination of basal metabolism and exercise requiring energy. So nutrient density here, it's delivering the most nutrients for the amount of energy in there. And again, this promotes adequacy and energy control. And then moderation is restricting foods that are high in salts, sodium, and simple sugars. And consequently, one has a contribution here to adequacy, balance, and energy control. And then a wide variety of foods, regardless of one's food preferences, be they an omnivore or be they a vegan. Either way, there has to be a good, healthy variety of foods to meet one's needs. And certainly with veganism, these individuals are extremely healthy. And just as with omnivores, they just have to eat a wide variety of foods. So the narrow definition of nutrition is the science side of it, the biochemistry, genes, physiology of what we eat, and what we're eating, of course, food security and 6 dietary principles. And through this, all these measures here, we have ingestion, digestion, absorption, transport, metabolism, and elimination. So ingestion leads to digestion, digestion breaking the food apart for absorption in the gastrointestinal tract. Then it's moved around through the blood, that's transport. Then we have metabolism into the correct forms that we need. This is part of WWFQ. And then elimination or excretion, as it is sometimes referred to. And this is simply getting rid of things that we no longer need and which ultimately have to be replaced by ingestion. So ingestion regulates digestion, digestion regulates absorption, absorption regulates transport, and transport regulates metabolism, and metabolism regulates excretion or elimination there. So IDATME really is required to get nutrients WWFQ. A more broad definition is the previous narrow definition plus psychology. So we're talking about, for example, undereating or overeating here, economics, affordability of food, sociology, anthropology. These are social constructs around food. Politics can either work in a positive way in terms of setting good nutritional advice, providing good nutritional advice, or in a negative way when there's a conflict, for example, between countries, then one side will try to make the other side food insecure and consequently ensuring victory for one side. And then we also have history here, and if one looks back at the history of nutrition, the world population was quite flat for many years because we were hunter-gatherers before the onset of agriculture. And then after agriculture got going and over many, many years, the food science and nutrition science then started in a very preliminary way in the 1800s. And then this allowed us to better understand this process of food security leading or presenting the opportunity for the 6 dietary principles, and then the 6 dietary principles leading on into IDATME, and IDATME leading into WWFQ. And by the way, when I say that the food security allows for the possibility of the 6 dietary principles, again, there are other forces that are involved here, like marketing of junk food, so on and so forth, which may take people away from to some extent at least, from the 6 dietary principles. So we have food security, opportunity for 6 dietary principles. If the 6 dietary principles are in place, then we've got IDATME, and if IDATME is functioning, then that leads to good WWFQ, and good WWFQ leads to good growth, development, and health. So nutrients are chemical substances in the food, and they are provide energy, structural material, regulating agents to support growth, development, maintenance, repair of the body, and possible disease prevention and recovery. I have here possible disease prevention and recovery because, of course, genetics can always enter into this and may make any application of nutrition impossible in terms of a role. But in the vast majority of diseases, at least of which I'm aware, nutrition does have a role both in pre-onset prevention and in post-onset recovery. Now in food, one has essential or indispensable nutrients. These are ones that we cannot make in our body and absolutely need to have in the diet. And then there's the non-essential nutrients that we can normally make. But in the case of some sort of metabolic issue with making these in our bodies, the non-essential nutrients in our body, then they become conditionally essential because in these circumstances of metabolic compromise, we can't make them. And in this case, we have conditionally essential nutrients, so they would have to be present in the diet. So the nutrients are broken down into carbohydrates, lipids. Lipids are fats and oils. Um, solid lipids at room temperature are called fats. Liquid um, at room temperature, these would be the oils, but both fats and oils are part of the lipid classification. And then proteins, vitamins, minerals, and water. And again, these all work together, WWFQ, for good metabolism and hence growth, development, health, so on and so forth. Uh, some of the nutrients are energy yielding and some are non-energy yielding. The energy yielding nutrients are carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, yielding respectively 4 and 9.4 kcals per gram or 17 kilojoules per gram of these nutrients. Uh, Kilojoules are used in many other countries, but within Canada and the United States, at least, we're still using kcals, but they're both energy, just a different way of expressing energy. So you've got energy for warmth, body maintenance, growth and development, building new compounds, turnover of compounds, so on and so forth. The vitamins, minerals, and water, um, they can um, assist in driving energy, but they also have other roles in important metabolism as well. And I'll just point out that organic refers to carbon containing and inorganic refers to an absence of carbon in the particular entity. So nutrient handling in the body is dependent on food security, following the 6 dietary principles, proper regulation of IDATME, and hence proper regulation of WWFQ. But in addition to that, it's just not diet, it's also sufficient physical activity and other aspects of healthy living that are key here. So if one tries to strictly do everything by diet, then one is not likely to be healthy. One has to have all these features in place for health. So the consequences of good nutrient handling are good growth development, including cognitive development, body maintenance and repair, the ability to work, learn, and engage in physical activity. And again, this is all occurs through the proper interaction of nutrients via the WWFQ format that I talked about previously. And the consequences of poor nutrient handling are diminished growth, development, learning, play, and work capacity. And it's also a contributor to the onset of numerous diseases, type 2 diabetes, colon, prostate, breast cancer, fatty liver, atherosclerosis, hypertension, congestive heart failure, sleep apnea, to name but a few. So it's very important that we have this WWFQ to avoid. And so in terms of summary, we first looked at what is nutrition um, and defined that in terms of the science of going from food security to the 6 dietary principles to IDATME to WWFQ. We then looked at the nutrients in terms of the energy yielding nutrients first, the proteins, the lipids, and the proteins. And then we moved on to the non energy yielding nutrients, which are the water, the minerals, and the vitamins. And we showed how both the energy and non energy yielding nutrients work together to produce proper WWFQ. And then in terms of nutrient handling, we looked at how nutrients are handled in a very coordinated fashion so that you do get the proper WWFQ. And then lastly, we looked at the consequences of good and bad nutrient handling. If the nutrient handling is good, then we have proper WWFQ and all the consequences that flow from that in terms of health and development, so on and so forth. And if, on the other hand, the nutrient handling is bad, we do not get this coordination among nutrients due to poor WWFQ, and consequently, there is poor growth, development, um, risk of disease onset, so on and so forth. So I thank you for the opportunity to speak to you, and I wish you all well.